Emily had always been the quiet engine behind everything that worked. At 52, she was the kind of person who didn't need to speak loudly to be respected. She had been working at a tech firm in Seattle for over 15 years, where everyone knew her for her discipline, warmth, and ability to solve problems that others couldn't even define. When she started developing a system called Horizon, she felt it was the most important work of her life. Horizon wasn't just another productivity tool. It was an intelligent system that organized workflows by adapting to team behavior in real time. It could detect patterns, anticipate bottlenecks, and reroute resources to prevent delays. Emily had built it line by line, drinking lukewarm coffee, eating crackers at her desk, and pulling all-nighters without complaint. That code was her craft, her identity, her pride. At first, Ryan, her direct supervisor, and Mark, the operations director, supported her. Or at least, they said they did. But over time, Emily noticed she was no longer invited to important meetings. She stopped receiving status updates. When she asked about the project's direction, Ryan smiled and gave vague answers. Mark only showed up when he needed reports or requested full documentation for backups. Emily told herself it was just corporate chaos before a big launch. She wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, but the silence grew, and her instincts told her something was deeply wrong. The final blow came on a Tuesday morning. Emily was sipping her third coffee alone in the break room when Lily, the young intern, approached her with a puzzled expression. "Aren't you joining the demo today?" she asked. "What demo?" Emily replied. Lily hesitated, then pulled out her phone and showed a live stream of the company's main conference room. There they were, Ryan and Mark, presenting Horizon to potential investors. Her Horizon, her life's work. Not once did they mention her name. Emily didn't speak. She didn't cry. She simply watched, heart pounding, as Ryan fumbled through her interface like it was his. Mark nodded proudly, pretending he had helped design it. Something shifted in her chest. A slow, quiet coldness settled in. She closed her laptop and walked calmly back to her desk. A part of her knew, in that moment, that she was being erased. Over the next few days, things escalated. She received more and more emails asking for every asset related to Horizon: documentation, code bases, internal notes. Ryan asked for diagrams and back-end schemas. Mark followed up with requests for database snapshots and test environments. Emily complied. She sent everything. But she also kept something for herself. She had developed a hidden feature, the Adaptive Intelligence Module, something Ryan had called too sophisticated for clients. It was the soul of the system, and she had never pushed it to the main branch. That version lived only on her machine, encrypted, protected, untouched by those who saw her work as something to be stolen. Friday afternoon came. Emily received a meeting invite from HR. She entered a bland room with gray walls and fluorescent lights. A cardboard box sat on the table. Ryan and Mark were already seated. Neither would meet her eyes. The HR rep, a young woman who looked as nervous as she did apologetic, began to read from a script. "Due to internal restructuring, your position has been impacted." Emily barely heard the rest. Ryan chimed in. "This isn't about your performance. You're talented, no doubt. But your contributions have been a little unfocused lately." Unfocused. The word echoed in her head like an insult dressed as concern. Emily could have shouted, could have flipped the table. But she didn't. She stood up, picked up the box with one hand and her dignity with the other. As she walked out through the corridor, past co-workers who didn't meet her gaze, she made a quiet promise to herself. They thought they won, but they had no idea what she still had. That night, she didn't sleep. Lying in the dark of her apartment, staring at the ceiling, Emily played every scene in her mind, every email, every meeting she was excluded from, every moment she ignored the warning signs. But pain quickly turned into clarity. At 4:15 in the morning, she rose, brewed strong coffee, and powered up her laptop. She opened the true version of Horizon, the real one, and with steady fingers she began typing. Not for them, not for revenge, but for herself. For the work. For everything they tried to take away, but couldn't. Emily worked through the night, her living room dimly lit by the glow of her laptop. Every click of the keyboard was a decision. Every line of code was an act of reclaiming what had been taken. She brought Horizon back to life, this time on her own terms. She stripped away the cosmetic edits Ryan had forced into the system and restored the original adaptive logic engine. The soul of the software was back where it belonged. By sunrise, she had something better than revenge. She had truth. Horizon was sleek again. It moved with elegance, responded to live data, and made real-time decisions based on how teams actually behaved. It predicted bottlenecks, sensed burnout, and distributed tasks efficiently. Emily sipped her coffee, watching the system run. It didn't just work. It breathed. Her next thought was clear. Someone needed to see this. Not someone from the company, not anyone who ever smiled through their betrayal. No, someone who would understand its power. That's when she remembered Sarah Chen. They'd met 6 months earlier at a tech summit in San Diego. During a boring keynote, they had both slipped out early and ended up chatting at the hotel bar. Sarah was sharp, commanding, but warm. At one point, after Emily mentioned the struggles of managing innovation in a rigid company, Sarah had said, "If you ever feel like your team stops listening, come find me." Emily had laughed then, thinking it was just polite networking. Now it felt like a beacon. Emily dug through her old emails, found Sarah's contact, and typed a message with trembling fingers. Subject: The Horizon they're about to see is a hollow version. Body: I have the real one. She stared at it for a long moment, then clicked send. 2 hours later, Sarah replied, "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Atrium Cafe. Bring everything." The next 24 hours blurred. Emily didn't sleep. She polished Horizon with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. She rewrote modules, removed the bloated designs Ryan had added, and made the interface clean, fast, and intuitive. She trained the AI on updated datasets and reactivated the behavioral module that she had once shelved to keep things simple. By the time dawn arrived, she was exhausted, wired, and calm. She printed a simple technical brief, cleanly formatted, placed it in a black folder, and left her apartment with the quiet focus of someone who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. The Atrium Cafe was half full when she arrived. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. The smell of espresso mingled with soft jazz playing in the background. Sarah was already there, dressed in black, sipping her coffee with calm precision. She looked up, nodded, and motioned for Emily to sit. Without saying much, Emily opened her laptop and launched Horizon. She guided Sarah through the platform. She didn't talk about Ryan or Mark. She let the system speak. Every animation was crisp. Every response was immediate. Horizon adapted to simulated stress in real time, redistributing resources based on live team performance models. Sarah leaned in, brows furrowed, clearly intrigued. "Wait," Sarah said, pointing to the screen. "Is this modeling emotional fatigue?" "Yes," Emily replied, "and communication breakdown, burnout trends, and alignment drift. It detects them before people even notice." Sarah nodded slowly. Her coffee sat untouched now. They kept going. Emily demonstrated how Horizon predicted task slowdowns and rerouted work streams without disrupting productivity. She showed how it learned from failure and not just success. Sarah asked tough questions. Emily answered all of them, clear, technical, but never cold. When the clock hit 9, Sarah finally closed the laptop. She didn't smile. She didn't compliment. She just said, "I need to make a call. Can you wait 20 minutes?" "Of course," Emily said, heart pounding. She waited with her hands wrapped around her coffee mug, unsure if her entire future had just happened or not at all. Exactly 19 minutes later, Sarah returned with a calm stride and placed her phone on the table. "I want Horizon," she said. "But I want to deal with you, not whatever company fired you." Emily blinked, stunned. "You're not just the creator," Sarah added. "You are the product, and they buried the wrong person." By that afternoon, Emily had incorporated her new company, Horizon Intelligence Solutions, LLC. She registered the domain, secured a business license, and began drafting a formal proposal for a full integration with Sarah's firm. Her hands shook as she typed, but her mind was crystal clear. Meanwhile, back at her former company, Ryan and Mark were preparing for their own big presentation. They had no idea the client they were pitching was now quietly backing away. And they certainly didn't know that the original Horizon, the real one, was about to become the centerpiece of a multi-million-dollar deal. Without them. The next morning, Emily walked into the towering lobby of Avalon Tech, the sleek headquarters of Sarah's company. She wore the only blazer she owned, the one tucked in the back of her closet like a relic. Her black folder was in hand. Her laptop was charged. Her body, though trembling from lack of sleep, moved with purpose. She wasn't here for a second chance. She was here for what was rightfully hers. The lobby was quiet, carpeted in soft gray, the kind of place where big decisions are made behind frosted glass and silent glances. Emily checked in and was shown to a waiting area near the conference center. From her seat, she could see the main entrance through a wide glass panel. She opened her laptop one more time and reviewed her presentation. Horizon glowed on the screen, stable and sharp. At exactly 9:27 a.m., the glass doors swung open. Ryan and Mark entered. They walked like they owned the room, expensive suits, rehearsed smiles, portfolios in hand. Ryan's eyes scanned the space and locked onto her. For a split second, his expression wavered. Surprise, confusion, and a flicker of dread. Then he smirked. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said as they passed. Emily didn't respond. She didn't even look up. They approached the front desk and checked in. The receptionist asked them to wait. Ryan raised an eyebrow but nodded. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Mark tapped his watch and whispered something. Ryan paced. The receptionist picked up the phone, speaking in hushed tones. Then, a tall woman in a navy blue suit approached, an executive assistant, no doubt. "Gentlemen," she said, "your presentation has been indefinitely postponed." Mark blinked. "There must be a mistake. We're scheduled at 10. "No mistake," she replied firmly. "You've been notified." Ryan's face turned red. He stepped forward, clearly about to argue, but the assistant cut him off with a polite hand gesture. "If you'd like to reschedule, please contact your rep through the official channel." And with that, she turned and walked away. Silence. Emily watched from her seat as Ryan stood frozen. Mark checked his phone, panic spreading across his face. They exchanged words, hushed but urgent. Ryan's voice rose, then fell as the receptionist glanced over. At that moment, Emily stood and walked calmly toward the elevator. She didn't need to say anything. She didn't need a confrontation. Their confusion was enough. Their unraveling had already begun. Upstairs, in a bright boardroom with glass walls and city views, Sarah and 2 lawyers were waiting. On the table sat a thick contract folder, a fresh coffee pot, and an empty chair across from them. Emily entered, nodded politely, and sat down. Her folder was placed next to the contract. The room was still, but it buzzed with weight. Sarah gestured. "Let's walk through the deal." Emily opened her presentation and guided them through Horizon. She didn't talk about betrayal or revenge. She spoke of potential, systems thinking, and user-centered design. She showed how Horizon adapted to team needs in real time, how it predicted inefficiencies, and how it kept teams aligned under stress. She answered every question. Her voice was steady. Halfway through, her phone buzzed. Ryan. Again. A second later, another message popped up. "What the hell did you do? This is sabotage. You'll hear from our lawyers." Emily stared at the screen. For a second, she almost laughed. She tilted the phone toward Sarah. Sarah read the message, then burst into laughter, the kind of sharp, surprised laugh that cuts through a room. One of the lawyers chuckled. "Well," Sarah said, pushing the contract forward. "That explains the 20 missed calls to reception." The number on the first page made Emily's vision blur for a second. $25 million. Full development rights, exclusive integration, and multi-year support. Under one condition, Horizon would be delivered through Horizon Intelligence Solutions, not her former employer. Sarah slid a pen across the table. "Unless you prefer a different one." Emily picked it up. Her hand trembled slightly. She glanced at the name printed in bold on the first page. Founder, Emily Vaughn. She signed. One stroke, quiet, clean, and just like that, the chapter they tried to erase was now fully hers. Downstairs, Ryan and Mark left the building in silence. Their presentation canceled. Their deal vanished, their expressions blank with shock. They didn't know what had happened, but they knew, deep down, that it had something to do with the woman who passed them in the lobby without a word. Emily stepped out into the sunlight, her body tired, her soul quiet. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't vindictive. She was free, and she had just built something no one could ever take away again. Emily didn't walk out of Avalon Tech like a hero. There were no reporters, no applause, no celebration. Just the hum of traffic, the breeze through the trees lining the sidewalk, and a contract in her bag worth $25 million. She stood on the corner for a moment, letting it all sink in. It wasn't pride she felt. It was something quieter, something deeper. Peace. That afternoon, she returned to her apartment in Capitol Hill. Her cat meowed lazily from the window. The same coffee mug she'd used during all those sleepless nights still sat on the table. Nothing looked different, but everything was. She had her name back, her work, her future. She had crossed the fire and come out whole. The first thing she did was call Lily. The intern answered on the second ring. "Emily? Would you like to work with me?" Emily asked. Lily laughed in disbelief. "Are you serious?" "As serious as I've ever been." Over the next few weeks, Emily built a team. Not from LinkedIn searches or talent pools, but from memory. She reached out to old colleagues who had been overlooked or undervalued. She hired junior developers she had once mentored, support engineers who had stayed late with her when no one else cared. They weren't flashy, but they were honest, loyal, talented. She named her company Horizon Intelligence Solutions, just like on the contract. A small office in the old warehouse district became their headquarters. Second-hand desks, mismatched chairs, but plenty of light and laughter. They didn't have ping-pong tables or kombucha taps. They had trust and a system that worked. Meanwhile, Ryan and Mark tried to recover. They pitched the gutted version of Horizon to other clients, but word had already spread. Sarah's firm had made the deal public. Everyone knew who the real creator was. Questions started coming from their board, then from their legal department. There were whispers about an investigation. Resignations followed soon after. Emily didn't follow their downfall. She didn't need to. That story no longer belonged to her. She had too much to build. She spent her days refining Horizon, training her team, guiding clients through integration. At night, she walked home in the quiet, thinking not about revenge or vindication, but about design choices, onboarding flows, and who needed her help next. A few months later, she gave a talk at a small tech gathering in Portland. Nothing fancy, no keynote lights or giant screens, just folding chairs and a modest podium. She spoke about systems that listen to people, about building from the inside out, and about not waiting for permission to be seen. Afterward, a man in his 60s approached her, wearing a name tag that read, Fred. His voice trembled slightly when he said, "Thank you. I was buried once too, but I didn't know how to fight back." Emily smiled. Sometimes it's not about fighting back. It's about building forward. Back in Seattle, her company grew slowly, deliberately, not with explosions of press or viral moments, but with consistency. Her clients stayed, her team stayed, and more importantly, so did her values. One evening, she stood by the window of her office. The sun was setting behind the buildings, casting a warm orange glow. Her team was still inside, laughing over takeout containers and scribbling ideas on whiteboards. Emily held a cup of tea and listened. Not to the noise, but to the silence beneath it. The kind of silence that says, "You did it." Her phone buzzed. A message from a former client she thought she'd lost forever. "We heard about what you've built. Can we talk?" She replied, "Of course. I'd love that." The past had no hold on her anymore. Not the betrayal, not the title she'd lost, not the people who erased her. She had built something that couldn't be taken, because it was rooted in truth, in effort, in her. A reporter once asked her in an interview, "If you could say one thing to those who pushed you out, what would it be?" Emily didn't hesitate. "I'd say thank you," she replied. "They freed me to become who I really am, and gave me the best gift they never meant to, distance. Because sometimes, when people push you out of the room, they unknowingly push you toward the door that was always meant for you. If you've made it to the end of this story, maybe you've lived something like Emily did. Maybe you were cut out, cast aside, underestimated. But let this be a reminder. Your work matters, your voice matters, and even if others try to bury it, seeds grow in darkness." Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and follow us for more true stories of resilience, courage, and quiet triumphs. See you in the next one.